Hello again. I must confess that I rather look forward to Britain's Black History Month, which is held in October. Every year the claims become more and more fanciful and there is less and less appetite to challenge the extraordinary claims which are made about the supposed achievements of black people over the ages. Nobody ever seems to ask themselves the glaringly obvious question: why, if black people invented light bulbs, blood banks, automatic lifts, and a host of other marvels in the past, are they not now at the cutting edge of medical and technological progress? Why are all these inventions only found many decades or centuries ago? And why aren't black people still inventing stuff? The answer is, of course, that the further back into the past you go, the easier it is to construct a false narrative and to muddy the waters about what did or did not happen. When claims are made today that a Nigerian called Philip Emeagwali is the father of the internet, it's easy enough to show that this is nonsense. I give a link to a bit about this modern day fairy tale in the description to this video. By taking the inventions back 100 or so years, it's easier to make them seem plausible. So although we can all laugh at the idea of this Nigerian being the father of the internet because it's so easy to prove the falsity of the assertion, if we go back to the early 1880s and claim that a black American called Latimer invented the electric light bulb or invented carbon filaments or something, it's a little more tricky because most people aren't familiar with that period in history. And they think, well, maybe it is possible. They don't really know who invented the light bulb. That's why these inventions or supposed inventions of black people are always a long while ago, usually in the 19th century. I give a link to a piece from the Daily Mirror, which has decided, in keeping with the spirit of the times, to publicise a lot of lies about things which are claimed to have been invented by black people. They begin with blood banks, and I quote, "Pioneering work by Charles Richard Drew, an African-American surgeon and medical researcher, led to the creation of blood banks in the early 20th century." Well, of course, blood banks were developed in the 1930s and Charles Richard Drew had nothing at all to do with them. I give a link to the Wikipedia article on the subject of blood banks and you will search in vain for any contribution made by Charles Drew. He was involved in the early years of the Second World War with blood transfusions and blood banks, it's true, but the idea that he had anything to do with inventing either of them is a fantasy. You can see Drew in the thumbnail to this video, and is often the case with black people who are doctors, mathematicians or scientists, that's to say black people who actually achieve things. It's really difficult to tell at first glance that he actually is a black man. His ancestry looks to me from that photograph to be almost entirely white. You will often observe this with black people who are well known or who have done interesting things, that they are clearly at least as white as they are black. I'm thinking here of people like Meghan Markle and Angela Davis in the United States. The idea that there were no doorknobs in people's houses until a black American invented them in 1878 is pretty bizarre as well, something else that the Daily Mirror claims. Has anybody ever visited houses of the 18th or 19th century and seen the doorknobs in them, dating from hundreds of years ago? I'm sure many viewers will have done. Does anybody really believe that until 1878 there were no such things, and that it wasn't until a black man in America patented doorknob in 1878 that people had the idea of having them on their doors? What about the three-colour traffic light? Does anybody really believe that that was invented by a black American? As I say, each year the claims grow ever more extravagant, and I'm waiting for the day that I read that black people invented aeroplanes and steam engines. The colonisation of history is well underway, and the amazing thing is that people seem to accept the imposition of these false narratives in this way without a murmur. Perhaps they've been made to feel so guilty about the transatlantic slave trade that they feel that it's the least they can do to make amends. sacrificing their own history to make black people feel better about themselves.